Welcome, and thank you for watching this annual municipal stormwater training, where we will be introducing the Municipal Stormwater Management Program, reviewing the Indiana Department of Environmental Management Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, also known as MS4, General Permit, reviewing elements of the SWIP, and providing information to demonstrate how you can make the municipal stormwater program successful. This training is required to be provided on an annual basis and must be provided to all municipal employees whose normal job responsibilities include investigation of an illicit discharge or illicit connection to the stormwater conveyance system, and for employees directly involved in implementing good housekeeping for MS4 owned and/or operated infrastructure and facilities. During the training, we will demonstrate to you why stormwater management is important. We'll go over information to raise awareness of the potential water quality impacting scenarios one may come across in a normal day, and provide the tools one may need to assist in identifying illicit discharges in the field, reporting spills, and how to respond to a spill. Municipal owned and operated facilities such as a Department of Public Works may have two plans which address stormwater management and spill response, one of which is the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan. Keep in mind, a municipal owned and operated facility which uses and stores chemicals or have processes that may discharge pollutants which may degrade water quality are required to have a Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan. The other plan is the Spill Prevention Control and Countermeasure Plan, regulated by the United States Environmental Protection Agency. If the facility has the capacity to store 1,320 gallons or more of petroleum products above ground, then the facility is required to have a Spill Prevention Control and Countermeasure Plan. Information from the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan and Spill Prevention Control and Countermeasure Plan will be covered during this training. In addition, this training will provide a review of important safety items to consider in the municipality's compliance schedule. You may be asking yourself why this training is important to you. The municipality is regulated by the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, and IDEM requires municipal employees to be trained in stormwater management. If you haven't heard of MS4 prior to today, here is a short review of the history of the municipal stormwater regulation. First introduced in 1972, the Clean Water Act National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System regulated point source discharges. In 1987, U.S. EPA developed a phased program for regulating municipal and industrial stormwater discharges. In 1999, U.S. EPA issued the federal NPDES Phase 1 rule, which addressed medium to large MS4 communities. Indiana has only one Phase 1, which is Indianapolis. Phase 2s were regulated in 1999. In 2021, IDEM updated the MS4 general permit, and we are now in permit calendar year 2. In addition, if you work for a municipal owned and operated facility which has a stormwater pollution prevention plan, the facility must conduct annual training to educate employees on the stormwater pollution prevention plan. The training must include information on how to prevent and respond to spills, illicit discharge detection, and good housekeeping in general. What does this all mean to you? You are a part of the city's team. In order to be successful, we all must keep our work environments, where we live, and our waters as safe and clean as feasible by doing our part. It is important to introduce some terms prior to going further. Definitions of each are found within the municipal ordinance and/or IDEM's MS4 general permit or construction general permit. Further definitions may be found within the U.S. EPA federal regulations. First, BMP or best management practice, such as the filter stock surrounding the fuel tanks. CWA, Clean Water Act. This was developed by the U.S. EPA, the Federal Water Pollution Control Act, or parent ruling to the NPDES program we are administering today. CSGP, This is the item general permit for construction activities regulating the stormwater runoff. GIS, Geographic Information System. We use this to track points and coordinates, create maps, and run software to demonstrate through imagery, real-time location, and other geospatial data. HHW, Household Hazardous Waste. This is hazardous waste generated by households that is ignitable, toxic, reactive, corrosive, or otherwise poses a threat to human health or the environment. IDEM, Indiana Department of Environmental Management, Environmental Regulatory Department for the state of Indiana. IDDE, Illicit Discharge Detection and Elimination. An illicit discharge is any discharge to the MS4 conveyance that is not composed entirely of stormwater, except naturally induced floatables such as tree limbs and leaves. LID, Low Impact Development. Site planning techniques that reduce the volume of stormwater generated on a property. MCM stands for Minimal Control Measures. There are 5 MCMs which are a part of the city's SWPPP, Stormwater Quality Management Plan, the overarching plan for the city to comply with items MS4 General Permit. MS4, Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, is defined by item as a conveyance or system of conveyance owned by a state, city, town, or other public entity that discharges to waters of the United States and is designed or used for collecting or conveying stormwater. MS4GP stands for MS4 General Permit. NPDES stands for National Pollution Discharge Elimination System and is the parent rule which the MS4GP is under. And the purpose of the NPDES permit is to control the point source discharges of pollutants into the waters of the state. When considering the potential for municipal operations to have a negative impact on stormwater, you'll want to consider the common activities performed. One may think, what are some of the common activities conducted, and what materials are stored outdoors which may cause a potential for a pollutant to come in contact with stormwater? Also consider what is exposed to the elements, what materials could be transported by stormwater, and where the pollutants may eventually end up. Since stormwater runoff eventually reaches our waterways, it is known that stormwater runoff can impact the health of waterways and therefore human health through ingestion or absorption. Common activities include material unloading or loading, sorting, transferring, and storing waste materials or recyclables, fueling and washing our vehicles, and jobs where we dig or break ground. Also, it is important to discuss illicit discharges. Consider what restaurants do with their oil and grease. If disposed incorrectly, it may be a form of illicit discharge for the city. Or consider if a spill were to occur and not be properly addressed, such as at a gas station, where gas is spilled and no one cleans it up. Then there is an example of an intentional illicit discharge, where a person decides to empty their oil in a storm drain. Those are all examples of illicit discharges. Remember, if it is not properly cleaned up or improperly disposed of, that will help define if the discharge is illicit or not. What pollutants are associated with the activities we just discussed? Salts, chemicals such as oil and antifreeze, fuels, pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers, household hazardous waste, general trash, and sediment. These all have a negative impact on the receiving water body. Common pollutants and activities are part of the facility SWP. The SWP must be updated annually and kept current, which means it is also required to be updated when any changes occur, such as altering drainage or adding a new activity or storage of a material which presents a new potential pollutant or additional need for stormwater treatment. During a compliance audit, an inspector may ask, where is the plan located? All must know where to find it to show the inspector. Inspections may be unannounced and unscheduled, especially if a complaint is filed and the inspector follows up on that complaint. Let's discuss waste transfer. When waste is stored outdoors, liquids which has traveled through or come from the waste can enter our waterways. Uncontained waste materials and liquids from the waste may have a negative impact on the waterway and could have lethal effects to the fish and organisms living in the waterway. We do our best to collect, contain, and cover waste so it does not have those negative effects on the waterways. When managing chemical storage on site, you want to consider the container in which the materials are stored and the location of the storage area. Containers must be kept closed and in good condition without holes, leaks, and rust. It is important to be cognizant of dents and bulges in the container, as that may be a sign of a drum failure. If you see any product outside of the container, or if the container is stored outdoors and open, take action to cover, close, or over-contain the product, especially if it is stored near a waterway or direct conveyance to a waterway. Storm drains are a means of direct conveyance to waterways. What would it be called if a chemical were to be released and not properly contained or cleaned up? As discussed, that is considered an illicit discharge. The fueling area is commonly used by many employees and sometimes contractors. Due to its nature, it needs to be inspected frequently for equipment failures, leaks, spills, and wear and tear which come with use. Familiarize yourself with the area and what it should look like. Familiarize the employees with the specific BMPs used and the replacement life of the BMP. If you see a BMP that looks worn or in need of a replacement, mention it to a supervisor or the person in charge of ordering more and replace the BMP if they are kept at hand. If you see a spill, it is important to clean it up and take steps to properly document the spill and corrective action. It is vital to always know where the absorbent material is stored and to know how to use it to clean up the spill. Activities such as unloading and loading materials and other maintenance activities most commonly cause materials to have a high potential to become a pollutant when not being properly handled or when not promptly cleaned up. Such activities could result in salt, sand, waste, or other raw materials entering our waterways via stormwater runoff. Something to consider when dealing with road salts. It can be many different materials depending on the deicer that is being applied. It ranges from sodium chloride to calcium chloride and even beet juice. The salt does not evaporate, it disperses. Salt may dissolve in the snowmelt water and enter streams, ponds, and groundwater, contributing to water pollution. This is why it is important for those who manage and handle salt to address spills once the snow or ice emergency is over, and to ensure the salt and sand storage is properly containing the materials. As municipal employees, it is important to identify how each of you can lessen the impact your day-to-day activities can have on water quality. BMPs must be in place, maintained, and inspected to assist with the lessening the potential from the day-to-day activities having a negative impact on the water quality of the receiving water body. In the future, a plan may be developed to further address areas which have a higher potential for concern, and the plan may include structural controls to remove the pollutant. An example of such structural control may be a hydrodynamic separator. A hydrodynamic separator acts as a device to settle out suspended solids and floatables. Inspections, maintenance, and operation manuals must be on file for all municipal-owned structural control measures, and inspection and maintenance reports must be kept showing compliance with the O&M manual. What are examples of BMPs? We talked about covered containers and the importance for the container to be inspected for leaks and spillage. The container itself and secondary containment beneath the container is a BMP. Consider if the container is in good condition, and be sure to check to ensure the container continues to hold up and if there is evidence of releases which would indicate there is a need for additional controls. Such evidence may be waste materials frequently outside of the container. Waste that is uncontained could impact a waterway if released. Make sure spill kits are in the area where a spill could occur. Stock them with absorbents, gloves, shovel, and bags. Be sure to include any additional items to address other waste types if needed, such as a mercury spill kit or controls for large volumes of liquid waste, such as beet juice. Ensure spill response kits are stocked after use and regularly inspect the kit. If there are drains to the stormwater structures on the property, ensure there is a drain cover available for use as needed. Ensure the drains are marked to identify if that drain drains to a waterway. Signage is a BMP and should be used to label all chemical and spill response kits. Good housekeeping and regular inspections are BMPs. As you do your normal activities and you see something that needs to be addressed, something out of place or a spill, ensure that if you can't address it, it is reported and an action plan is in place to address the release. Secondary containment and drip pans both are structural controls to collect and contain spills from drums and containers or equipment. They need to be regularly inspected. The valve needs to stay in a closed position in the event of a release to catch the chemical and prevent a discharge or spill. Proper disposal of chemicals is important. Don't just wash out a container. Instead, it must be solidified or a solid waste management facility must dispose of the materials. Other common BMPs may include flammable cabinets, covered storage and loading areas, drain covers and seals, large leak-proof and covered waste containers, and labeled containers. On this slide is an example of a facility map. Each stormwater pollution prevention plan will include an exhibit or map. The map will generally identify the sources of potential pollutants and the likely discharge or directional flow of stormwater from the property. More specifically, the map is a resource to employees as it identifies all drains, spill kits, flow of stormwater, and other potential pollutant-causing activities and material storage. Employees and inspectors will need to know where the potential pollutants are being stored and the location where potential pollutant-causing activities are conducted to ensure there are proper BMPs in place and waterways are being adequately protected. When responding to spills, be sure you always keep safety in mind first when dealing with a spilled chemical. Consider the chemical and know what has been spilled. Avoid walking or driving through the spill. If the spill is from a drum, turn drums that are leaking on their side and shut off valves, close the lid, and do what you can to stop the release. If you are unsure, consider referencing the SDS. It will identify how to address spilled material. Do your best to keep materials from entering a waterway. Once you are able, notify your supervisor and take steps to report the spill. A spill into the stormwater system has the potential to cause a lot of damage. That is why it is important to identify who to call when addressing a spill. Utilizing a vac truck and specialized equipment may be necessary to properly contain and address a spill in a stormwater system. A spill to the sanitary system may require a call to the wastewater treatment plant. Report all spills over 5 gallons to your supervisor. These are photos showing ways one can contain the spill and stop the flow of the spill. Please ensure when storing spill cleanup materials that the liquids are stored in an appropriate container for liquid disposal. Also, when using absorbent materials and pads for the remainder, place the used absorbent pads and absorbents into a bag into a container, and don't forget to clean the tools used to clean up. Then return the equipment to the proper areas. Cleaning of tools should be done in an area where wash water is contained and properly discharged. As the city continues to implement their stormwater management plan, following these next steps will assist the city in staying in compliance. If you are responsible for conducting daily, weekly, or quarterly inspections for the city, be sure you continue to do the inspections and do what you can to make each inspection count. Regularly inspecting facilities and conducting housekeeping will assist in remaining in compliance with the city's stormwater permit. You may encounter the city stormwater department staff during their inspections of facilities throughout the city. The stormwater department will continue to complete quarterly inspections or side-by-side inspections with various departments within the municipality. The stormwater team and other trained staff and consultants are resources for questions or concerns and there to assist and help address issues. If you are a department head or in charge of newly hired employees, please note, new employees will need to receive this training within 60 days of hire, and all seasonal employees are required to receive training within 30 days. Municipal employees will continue to receive training at least annually. We've talked about spill response. Now let's talk about spill prevention. The major risks of spilling include overfilling, leaks occurring from a hose or malfunction of a hose, valves, tanks, containers, or other abnormalities. The control measures include daily observation, absorbance, spill response equipment, sand, oil, or something similar to utilize as a temporary dam to stop the product from dispersing, and gauges for filling procedures and leak detection. When utilizing flammable cabinets to address the potential for flammable materials from combusting, remember the following. Always label containers, close lids when not in use, keep cabinet doors closed when not in use, do not store cardboard or other combustible materials such as paper in a flammable cabinet, do not store containers with valves in flammable cabinet, cabinets need to be bonded and grounded, not more than 60 gallons may be stored in one storage cabinet, not more than 25 gallons of flammable or combustible liquids may be stored in a room outside of an approved storage cabinet, and not more than 3 storage cabinets may be present in a single storage area. Label all chemicals and materials within the material storage areas. Please be sure to label all accurately. Commonly, facilities mislabel used oil, and it is important to only label used oil with the words used oil. The tote shown is properly labeled. Additional containers should not be on top of the tote. Secondary containment must be inspected frequently to prevent releases and to ensure good housekeeping is being implemented to prevent a release. Communication may be another good tool to prevent non-compliance issues. Consider communicating the needs if an item needs to be replaced after use, such as absorbent materials, or if something is needing to be ordered or a spill reported. Be sure the information is communicated to the person who takes the next step. And it may be helpful if you are following up with them to help remind them of the needed replacement equipment. By noting anything unusual in the conveyance system or a spill that occurs within the municipal corporate limits, you are being the eyes and ears and helping to achieve compliance. The goal of the Spill Prevention Control and Countermeasure Plan, also known as the SPCC plan, is to provide a plan on how to respond to spills and prevent spilled materials from reaching waterways, such as the Grand Calumet River. As shown on the slide, the Department of Public Works is located near the Grand Calumet River, and there are large storage tanks of fuel located on site. The SPCC plan should be reviewed every 5 years and amended within 6 months of improvements. All staff should become familiar with the chemicals stored at the facility and need to know where the spill response kits are located. In the event of a spill which results in an emergency, staff must know where to find the emergency contact list and who to call. The globally harmonized system of classification and labeling of chemicals provides consistency throughout the world. It was created to establish the same chemical numbering and classification to provide a common way to deal with chemicals being transported, handled, and managed in a safe manner by ensuring they are labeled consistently with health, physical, and environmental hazards so everyone who handles it knows what it is. Chemicals are used throughout the facility. You must be aware of what hazardous chemicals you work with and what you can do to protect yourself. You have the right to know the hazards of chemicals in the workplace and what protective measures to take. Information on chemicals can be found in the safety data sheets. Every SDS is divided into 16 standard sections. This is an SDS for bleach. The 16 categories include hazards identification, composition and information on ingredients, product identification, first aid measures, firefighting measures, accidental release measures, handling and storage, exposure controls and personal protection, physical and chemical properties, stability and reactivity, toxicological information, ecological information, disposal considerations, transportation information, regulatory information, and other information. The SDS shows this is a Category 1 of skin corrosion and serious eye damage. Danger is the signal word for this chemical. Precautionary statements tells you what to do. Section 8 is an important section telling what PPE you need to utilize to be safe when handling a chemical. Section 13 tells you how to properly dispose of the material and container. Regarding empty drums, per the DOT regulations, a drum must be drip empty to determine the hazard of the drum is no longer present. This is different from the RCRA regulations. To make sure drums are drip empty to meet DOT regulations, there must be less than 1 inch of material remaining in the drum, or there's less than 3% of material remaining in the container by volume. Remember, even empty drums should not be stored outdoors standing upright. If water enters the drum, the contents may be then considered a hazardous waste. Empty drums should be laid over on their side with all openings securely closed. Drums should not be allowed to accumulate for more than a year. Take care not to accumulate too many drums. Electronics are considered a universal waste. Electronics should be collected in a controlled area such as a lockable trailer or building and stored indoors. There are several companies that will recycle this material. Do not accumulate more than 220 pounds per month. The Item Office of Land Quality Electronic Waste rule excludes an amount up to 46,000 pounds or 23 tons, as long as the electronics are enclosed in a building or lockable trailer. Lamps can contain small amounts of mercury that, when released, can pollute the ground and water. Proper collection and disposal are required. Used lamps can be collected and stored for 1 year. Batteries and ballasts are universal waste and must be stored in a lined, closed, and locked container with a label which identifies the date in which the first battery or ballast was placed, and the quantity and time must be tracked to ensure proper regulations are followed and the waste meets the universal waste regulations. Chemicals such as antifreeze are poisonous to animals. Collecting antifreeze for recycling is an option and should not be thrown away in the trash. This concludes the city's MS4 annual employee training. Thank you for listening, and please direct all questions to the city's MS4 coordinator at 219-516-2317 or the city's environmental consultant.